The emergency sirens were already screaming by the time the Senate's gilded chambers shattered. Jorek Van didn't bother looking back. He wasn't here for a speech. He was here for war. Plasma bolts ripped through the air, carving through ornamental pillars and reducing their sanctified halls to a battlefield. The Galactic senators, once draped in arrogance, now cowered behind overturned benches, their robes streaked with soot and blood. They had ignored the warnings. They had dismissed the Terrans. And now they were paying the price. Behind him, Captain Alex Cord stepped over the twitching corpse of a Eldari enforcer, her rail rifle still glowing hot from a point-blank execution. "They're still transmitting," she spat, slamming a data spike into the central console. Trying to call in reinforcements. Jorek wiped the blood from his visor. "Let them. By the time anyone gets here, we'll already own this place." The Senate's security had been designed to repel political dissenters, not a Terran kill team. Their automated defenses barely had time to cycle up before striker units hit the floor, moving with surgical precision. A drone pulsed above Jorek's shoulder, feeding tactical overlays straight to his HUD enemy movements, fallback points, heat signatures of cowards looking for an escape route. A robed figure lurched forward, hands raised in surrender. Chancellor Vekas, leader of the same coalition that had once mocked humanity as a species of expendables. Please, Vekas stammered, his 3 violet eyes wide with terror. We can negotiate." Jorek shot him in the knee. "You had your chance." Vekas collapsed with a scream, clutching his shattered limb. The air reeked of burning alloys and ozone discharge. The rest of the Senate watched in frozen horror. They had once dictated policy, bartered lives like currency, but now they were cattle, waiting for slaughter. Alex kicked over a data terminal, scanning its flickering interface. They locked down external comms. "We need to override their security if we want the world to see this." Jorek's fingers danced across his wrist console, linking into the stolen Senate mainframe. Encryption layers peeled back like rotting flesh. Their secrets, their betrayals, all laid bare at his fingertips. Then let's show the galaxy what real power looks like. The walls trembled, not from the battle, but from something worse. Alex's face hardened as her HUD lit up with new contacts. "Jorek, we've got inbound. Heavy signatures, not Senate forces." Jorek exhaled slowly, gripping his rifle tighter. "Then let's welcome them properly." Jorek's grip tightened around his rifle as the feed on his HUD filled with unknown contact. Their signatures were wrong, too dense, too layered, shifting in a way that normal life forms didn't. This wasn't just another strike force. This was something else. Something worse. Alex's breath came sharp over comms. "That's not standard fleet. That's..." She stopped herself, jaw tight. "It doesn't matter. We hold the line." Jorek didn't argue. The words they weren't saying were already clawing at the back of his mind. The Senate only called in reinforcements when they thought they could win. But they didn't call in this. Someone else had. Vekas whimpered from the floor, clutching his mangled knee. "You don't understand," he gasped. "They're already here." Jorek turned, leveling his weapon. "Then start explaining." Before Vekas could respond, the temperature in the chamber dropped. Not in degrees. Not in any measurable way. It was the kind of cold that settled in the bones, that turned breath into ice even when the air was warm. The holo-terminals flickered. Data streams corrupted, glyphs twisting into unreadable spirals before collapsing into static. Then came the sound. It wasn't an explosion. It wasn't weapons fire. It was a hum, low and resonant, vibrating through the walls like a living thing. It pressed against Jorek's skull, a frequency that bypassed the ears and went straight to something deeper. His muscles tensed. His thoughts blurred at the edges. Something was speaking, but not in words. Not in anything human. Alex gritted her teeth, her cybernetic interface sparking against her temple. "Jor!" A shadow moved. Not through the doors. Not through the walls. Through the space itself, peeling away from the air like a fold in reality. Jorek fired. His rounds hit nothing. The thing that wasn't there still moved. Vekas sobbed. You don't win against them. You survive. If they let you. Jorek reloaded. His body wanted to shake. He didn't let it. Then we make sure they don't get a choice. The lights cut out. Something exhaled in the dark. Jorek didn't hesitate. The moment the lights died, he switched to infrared nothing. Motion sensors silent. Whatever had entered the chamber didn't register on standard detection, but it was there. He could feel it, coiling through the dead air like a predator circling wounded prey. Alex's voice crackled over comms, low and controlled. Command override linking biosign to live feed. A pulse of static hit Jorek's HUD, and then Alex's vision bled onto his display. Her augments cut deeper than standard optics, shifting past the normal spectrum. And there it was. Not one. Not two. Dozens. Shadows moving in ways that defied sense, bending where bodies shouldn't, shifting between the cracks of reality itself. Humanoid only in suggestion, like echoes of something that had worn skin long ago. A whisper impossibly close. You were never meant to be here. Jorek spun, firing blind. The chamber lit up in flashes of white-hot muzzle flare, rounds hammering into nothing. No impacts. No bodies. Just the illusion of space warping around them, like the battlefield itself was rejecting reality. Vekas sobbed, dragging himself backward with his good leg. You idiots! You thought you could just take the Senate and walk away? You thought they wouldn't notice? Alex kicked him hard in the ribs. Shut up or I start shooting lower. Vekas wheezed, rolling onto his back. You don't get it. This isn't a fleet. It's not even a war. He laughed, wet and broken. It's a correction. Jorek ignored him, gripping his rifle tighter. We need an exit. Now. Alex worked fast, slicing through the security system, forcing the doors open with a pulse of stolen code. A deep tremor rocked the Senate chamber, dust falling in sheets as something outside the structure moved. Not ships. Not reinforcements. Something bigger. Then, through the static-filled chaos, another signal cut through his comms. A voice. Crisp. Cold. Familiar. Jorek. Stand down. His blood turned to ice. He knew that voice. Hadn't heard it in years. Alex's head snapped up. That's... The walls groaned. The whispering grew sharper. The exit doors wrenched open, but on the other side, it wasn't an escape route waiting. It was something else. Something that had been waiting for him. Jorek's breath locked in his throat. The figure standing beyond the threshold wasn't a monster, wasn't an echo of the void. It was a man. A soldier. A ghost. Dane! The last time Jorek had seen him, he was bleeding out on the wreckage of Orion 7, buried under collapsed steel and fire. They had written him off. The Senate had written him off. But there he stood, armor pristine, eyes dead, voice colder than the vacuum outside. Stand down, Dane repeated. Jorek raised his rifle. You're supposed to be dead. Dane didn't blink. So were you. Alex shifted beside him, her grip on her sidearm tightening. He's not real, she murmured, barely audible. Jorek, he's not real. But he was. Flesh and blood, breathing, standing in the ruined corridor like he had never been buried alive. The shadows behind him pulsed, folding around him as if they had carried him through the void. Vekas groaned from the floor, half laughing. You really don't get it. The Senate isn't running the war anymore. They lost control years ago. Jorek didn't take his eyes off Dane. Then who the hell is? Dane finally moved, stepping forward just enough for the dim light to catch the glint of something embedded in his skull and interface, sleek and alien, pulsing with an unnatural rhythm. His voice barely carried over the static crawling through Jorek's comms. "You already know." Then the hum returned. No, not a hum, something deeper. A signal. A frequency. A command. Alex staggered back, fingers digging into the side of her head. "Jorek," her voice broke, glitching through his earpiece. "It's rewriting us." Vekis screamed. Dane reached out, fingers twitching like a puppet string being pulled. The air cracked. Jorek's vision split, reality bending inward like a collapsing waveform. Then everything snapped. The ship was gone. The Senate was gone. Jorek was standing in open space, weightless, breathless, staring into the void of something impossible. A structure, vast and alive. Not built. Not grown. Woven. The signal screamed through his skull, and in that instant, he understood. This wasn't a war. This was the start of something worse.